Hey everyone, welcome back to CryptoCache. Thank you so much for joining me here. Hope you're having an amazing day. We're going to take a quick look at Bitcoin, see what's going on. And today our focus is mostly going to be macro. We're going to look at the big picture, kind of see what's what potential we have for this retracement. If it were to continue down, where would it go? Okay, so we're just going to go ahead and start with the 1 week and work our way down a little bit and effectively understand big picture, where we've come from and where we're at presently. All right, so just quickly look here, of course. Obviously, the price has done very well for itself this year, okay? Because we got to understand what no less than a year and a half ago, the price was down at 10,000, 11,000 range, right? So to kind of preface, we are still overextended in the big picture if you look at it that way, right? Obviously, Bitcoin has a tendency of doing that, and that's pretty normal. But just generally speaking, we're definitely overextended in that sense. If you were to kind of consider, roughly where we're at there. Now, when we look at our RSI and the MACD, we're obviously on the downtrend, and we're definitely getting closer to a potential bottom. But here's the thing you need to understand. If we look back here, in March of 2020, for example, just say roughly 2 years ago, just a little under 2 years ago, RSI was down closer to 30, and that eventually led to another potential increase, okay? Now, I'm not saying that's exactly going to happen here. It doesn't always work that way, but RSI tells us a lot about how, overextended or oversold something is, okay? Now, that being said, if we look at that on the 1 week, we're down at 40, which is not great, but it could be a lot worse, okay? And just let that sink in. It could be a lot worse than it is right now, and we're already feeling the pressure, okay? So just bear in mind, if we do end up losing this bottom here at about 37.5, the next targets are going to be tremendously lower than where we're at presently if we lose 29,000, okay? Now, I'll talk about that here in a moment, but generally speaking, RSI being under 50, not great on the weekly. I know we've been there for a little while, but I just want to bring that to your attention, kind of help you understand that that is not ideal whatsoever, okay? So again, bearish divergence on the weekly makes sense considering the circumstances. I don't think we're going to see the price ramp back up anytime soon. We need a stable foundation of volume before we can increase. And Bitcoin proved recently that, even after a week's worth of consolidation, we eventually lost that bottom, okay? So again, the weekly doesn't look phenomenal. Also bear in mind too, the 200-day SMA is finally working its way up to about 20,000. So heaven forbid we lose all these potential supports. 20,000 could effectively be a new support level. Granted, we're a long ways from that. I'm not telling you we're going to hit 20,000 tomorrow, okay? Just don't take that away from this conversation. Just understand that's a positive thing. That should help us keep the price action. So I'd say bare bottom, if Bitcoin were to lose all of its bottoms, right? 20,000, we should see some kind of support on the 200-day SMA on the weekly, okay? So just bear that in mind. All right, so that's kind of where we're at there. So we're about, I would say, halfway down in our progression, so to speak. If you look at RSI being under 50, and if we consider 30 the bottom, we're halfway there, right? So just kind of bear that in mind. Let that sink in a little bit. Now, looking at the 1 day, obviously we got the death cross here recently, which is effectively coming to fruition. Yesterday we had this nice little bull trap here where the price came up. I'm sure a lot of folks bought in, and obviously the price decreased very hard after that. And I was recommending, again, my video yesterday that, we're not, until we get that 1 day candlestick to close above a specific price point, which was about 44,000, then we have no reason to be excited, okay? Now the price came and retraced all the way back down to effectively, give us this bearish breakout, right? So the breakout came down. Of course, we have this bearish divergence occurring this entire way. We have this, this descending wedge pattern effectively that didn't break to the upside, which a lot of us thought it would, and then it came down. Again, I didn't expect it to happen, but I was hoping for some consolidation and then, of course, some confirmation above 44, 46 before we took entry as a community, right? I was planning to potentially cancel or close my short position as a community if we reach that confirmation. But again, that's why you always wait for confirmation. I need you to understand that it's really important to note that even though we have like this trading channel that occurred, until the price broke free from that channel and got back up above a key level resistance, 46,000, for example, there's no reason to consider Bitcoin to be bullish, right? You have 1 day of green candles. It's not time to get excited. Okay, we can't get that excited when we have the price continuing to progress downwards. Yes, once we've broken free from some key level resistances, different story. We can celebrate that. But between now and then, you got to be smart. You got to be safe and keep your money aside. And do not just put it in because it's burning a hole in your pocket. I talk about this in my trading academy all the time. It's important to be patient as a trader and to make sure that you understand that big picture. You can get there essentially. You just gotta get there correctly, right? Again, that's just kind of just some friendly advice. But here's the key takeaway here too. If you look at the RSI, we can see we're well under 30 on the RSI. Now that's good in a sense, right? That pretty much tells us that we might see a bounce. So the likelihood of the price bouncing back up to try to test the previous support at 40,500, probably get rejected at 40,500, is going to be a thing. We're probably going to see that perhaps even this weekend. So again, that RSI under 30, I do expect some type of bounce, which is natural. It happens. It happened here previously, if we see that. And it also happened previously here as well. It eventually bounced back. So we may not expect that to happen today, but it's normal for that knee-jerk reaction to occur. And if we look down below, we can see our RSI, our MACD is effectively bearish once again. Okay, so we've got a bearish divergence, essentially. Not great signs. All of this stuff is very, very strong bearish, but just note that if the price were to kind of try to recover a little bit here soon, which is pretty standard considering the price came down, I mean, you see pretty much any major candle wick down, it has a tendency of coming back up, right? So there's a good chance we might see a push back up to 40,500. If we do, don't get too excited. That's all I'm asking. We're not, all of a sudden bullish from Bitcoin because we broke a, key level resistance that was previous to support, right? I think it'll be another false positive, and I think at this point we need to see a lot more consolidation sideways before we get any type of excitement. So let's talk a little bit more about, I guess, big picture and roughly where we're going to go here. So let's go back to the 1 week, and let's go ahead and pull up a Fibonacci retracement. Let's go with the worst case scenario, and again, when it comes to Fibonacci retracement, you want to kind of consider, some big picture stuff. In other words, in this regard, I'm going to look at the 1 week, and we can look at the the Fibonacci on a shorter time frame. But on the 1 week chart here, we can see if we break this key level support at 37.5 as a close approximate, the next major support level is 29,000. Again, I'm rounding down a little bit, 29,002, 29,000. It's effectively the same thing. And the reason why that's important, and we need to understand this, is it was a previous support level for Bitcoin in the summer. Okay, so if we recall, during the summertime, we had some pretty hard sell-offs, of course, China candle, and then, of course, it was followed by, El Salvador candle later. But generally speaking, this 2 to 3 month time frame was very rough, but we tested 29,000 roughly almost 3 times. Okay, it came down to 30 and then 29.5 at just a handful of different times. But generally speaking, on the 1 week here, if you can see, that's a key level support. As soon as we break that, though, and that's the one thing I need to kind of bring to your attention as well here, it's almost like a free fall. So we look at the volume, there's literally no volume in this range here between 10,000 and 29,000, because we had this sharp increase that occurred in what? How long was that? October up through December. So 2 months worth of volume, which is very, very little if you compare that to where we're at either presently and or below, right? So generally speaking, I want you to understand and be concerned with this major shelf that we see here. There is a lot of free fall potential if we lose 29,000. Okay, so that being said, the next major Fibonacci retracement level, again, this is not specific by any means because there's not a lot of volume here, but we are looking at about 25,000. I'm speaking in round numbers here. 25,000 is the likely next level, key level support if we lose 29,000. Okay, so again, 29, 25,000, those would be the $2 cost average targets, you could say, if we lose the bottom here at 37.5. Okay. Now, not to say that we lose this bottom, it's gonna free fall, because there is a decent amount of volume here, don't get wrong, between 29,000 and 37,500, right? We can identify that here in a moment. But for the moment, I want you to understand, though, just let this sink in as well. Big picture, 29,000 would be probably the next major key level support if we were to effectively continue to progress down. If we lose 29, it's going to be a very, very concerning time, so to speak. Not to say it would be terrible, because there's a lot of positives, a lot of ways in which you can make money. In fact, as a community, we've been doing very well in this scenario because we've been holding on to our positions and making sure that we don't make false moves, right? But again, it's easy to do that. So just know 29,000 is essentially the big picture worst case scenario for key level support. If we lose that, it's going to probably free fall potential from there. And again, the 200-day SMA working its way up, I think that would be the bottom. We shouldn't expect the price to go much lower than 200-day SMA. That's a very standard, very strong support level in most cases. Okay. Again, this is all in the weekly. This is more big term, long picture stuff that you just need to understand. We could see that happen. All right, so take a look here at the 1 day. Something to identify as well is let's go ahead and just kind of look at the more immediate retracement and kind of understand roughly where we could be, okay? And there's a few different ways we can go about this, but we're just going to go ahead and go with about roughly the last 1 month's worth of trading data and kind of see what that looks like for us. So we can kind of identify between 29,000, the current price action, what support levels do we have? So according to Fibonacci retracement, we have a support level next, a next available support right around 33.6. We're going to round down and say 33,500 would be the next key level support. So right around 33.5, and then of course 31.5 below that. So 33.5, 31.5, and 29,000 even are roughly the next 3 major support levels we have according to Fibonacci retracement. And that is, again, based on the last 1 month's worth of trading data. Okay, we can go all the way up, of course, as we already have, and draw Fibonacci from top to bottom. That gives us a longer, a larger range. So to identify more, I guess you could say midterm slash, lower micro, if you will, then that's why I drew out the Fibonacci retracement level at this point to kind of give us better perspective on the more immediate. So in the next month, if we were to see a retracement, these would be the next key level supports. So 33.5, 31.5, and 29. Okay. So again, there's a lot of room here in between 37,000 and just say 29/33.5. Okay. And let's go ahead and quickly identify just a little bit of volume, kind of see, and what we're going to do, we're just going to look at the volume based on when the price action has been in this channel, because we know there's not a lot of volume underneath 29,000, right? So we'll just go ahead and look at this current volume here. We can see a lot of volume accumulation right there at that key level Fibonacci retracement line, 33.5. So thankfully, we have a lot of volume between 33.5 and 37.5. As you can see, there is a pretty good handful of volume. So in other words, all that volume came from right here. And if the price were to continue to digress, yes, we should expect the price to come all the way down to 33.5 if we lose 37.5. But on the same accord, I don't think it'll just free fall depending on world news. I think it'll slowly bleed out to 33.5 as the next major. Again, we'll see here soon, obviously, what will happen. But the thing I want you to understand on the 1 day is that we do have a decent amount of volume slash support below the price action presently, right? And that's a good sign when the price is digressing. Should imply that we're going to have kind of some buy walls. So if the price were to lose 37.5, you're going to expect to see a lot of volume accumulation somewhere between 33.5 and 37.5. So that's like a pretty strong support channel in my personal opinion. I think it's less likely to see 29,000 or lower. I think that's lower. I think the probability of that is fairly low. Again, we'll bridge that gap when we get there. But I do think the likelihood of the price losing 37.5 and coming down to test, anywhere between 33.5 and 37.5 is very high. So I would say, consider this to be a very strong support channel. If we lose 33.5, then I think it would quickly progress down to 29, possibly lower. Okay. Again, we need to bridge that gap when we get there. We're not there yet. We don't know. But if anything's speaking to us right now, it's the volume, and it's telling us that we have a lot of volume accumulation, which is below the price action presently, which is a good sign, right? So obviously look at all the volume above the price right now. We don't need to worry about that because we're on the downtrend, right? We worry about what's going to happen next. And this volume support, it should hold as a support, and at least tentatively, okay? We'll bridge that gap when we get there, but for right now, if we lose 37.5, just note 33.5 is the next key level support, and we should be in good shape to be able to hold that range for some time. We may even hold between 37.5 and 40,500. There's a good chance we're going to see some sideways action from here. Are we going to break down below 37.5? It's really hard to say specifically. We have to look at shorter time frames to identify that, and we can go ahead and do that now if you want, just to kind of quickly get perspective at kind of some standard indicators here. Most everything is going to be extremely bearish. I mean, we're at 30 on the RSI on the 4-hour, which is less common. We don't see that too often, but when we do get to that level, we can see that usually it consolidates and then slowly increases, right? So if we see back here, we have this period where the price action actually consolidated sideways, and then the RSI slowly increased as the fear index increased, so to speak, right? Now, granted, we've been low on the fear, uncertainty, and doubt meter for a while, but generally speaking, RSI takes a little while to calm down, right? It's the relative strength based on the last 14 candlesticks. So in this case, right now, we're showing extreme divergence, so to speak, and it makes sense it's going to be there. So we could expect to see the RSI be low for a little while. So again, the price could consolidate and continue to go sideways and then slowly increase. I speculate we're going to see the price try to come up and then try to test 40,500, and it'll likely reject, just based on the overall sense that we have. This was a previous support level, right? Now it's a key level resistance. The longer you hold at support, the harder it is to break as a resistance. So just bear in mind, now that we're below that level significantly, the likelihood of the price coming up to bounce and come back down off of that is fairly high. So if we see a price action somewhere in the range of 40,000, in fact, I want to go ahead and set an alert at 40,000 just to ensure that when the price action were to come up to that point, we might want to consider taking a short position. I think it would be ideal to do that. Now, granted, we already have a short position open for Bitcoin, so that we might want to reconsider depending on the scenario. Obviously, if you're a community member, you know that. But generally speaking, the common thought process here would be to consider a short position when it gets close to that resistance, based on the fact that it was a previous support level and now it's now broken. Right, so that's kind of the general idea there. But again, RSI under 30, we're going to see that slowly come back up to 50 and probably reject at 50. There's a strong chance of that. But once again, we have bearish divergence here, of course, on the MACD. Pretty significant bearish divergence, and I don't think it's done yet. In other words, the likelihood of it coming down lower is pretty high, but I do think it'll try to test and come back up and test 40,500 first before it gets rejected. So be on the lookout. Be careful. When you see the price increasing closer to 40,000, be mindful in the fact that the likelihood of it coming up past 40,500 is fairly low. The likelihood of it getting rejected at that price point is higher. Okay. Once again, previous support, now considered resistance, that'll hold the price action down, as well as the fact that the 50 is going to be working its way down too. So by the time the price comes back up to test 40,500, the 50-day SMA will effectively be working as a resistance to push the price action down even further. Okay. So unless we have some really, really strong fundamental catalyst in just say the news, so to speak, there's no reason for Bitcoin to recover based on the technical analysis alone. So everything we see here so far is significantly bearish. Obviously, we know that based on yesterday's actions, but generally speaking, there's no reason we should expect a turnaround. If we do see a turnaround, I would just be very cautious and understand that it's probably a false increase and will probably get rejected at 40,500. So to summarize, key level resistance is now 40,500. The key level support we want to make sure to hold is 37,500. If we do lose that, we should expect to see the price come down to this support channel between 33.5 and 37.5. And heaven forbid we lose that. We've got one last ditch effort of 31,500, and then 29 is our last saving grace. So that is essentially what we're looking at for the macro on Bitcoin. We'll go ahead and worry about the micro tomorrow once we've had a little bit more consolidation. There's no point in really identifying short-term turnarounds, specifically on the 1 hour and the 4 hour at this point, because it's not enough trading data, right? That's why the big picture, this is really all we have to look at, and this is going to help us understand the big picture. So I hope you found benefit, of course, here today. If you do, like, subscribe, comment below. If you want to join my trading community and stay afloat in this environment, please consider joining. I would recommend considering first of the month, just based on the fact that we're going to transition away from Patreon here soon. And it would be ultimately just in your best interest because I have a trading academy I'm rolling out with month end as well. That'll help you become a better trader. I teach you step by step every step of the way with in-depth, quite a few hours worth of training videos. So hope you benefit from that as well. Thanks again for your time. We'll see you in the next one. Take care.